Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Show as we have a very special guest to the program today, an actor and screenwriter who is currently the associate producer of the popular faith-based series, The Chosen, which can be seen on PureFlix. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the very talented Justen Overlander. Hello, Justen. How are ya?
Hey, Maurice, I'm doing well. Thanks. That was quite the introduction.
Man, it is really great to have you on the show today, man. I tell you, I'm in my nouveau riche, cool dark mode today, man. So this is gonna be so cool, Justen. I'm telling you, man, you gotta love it. But Justen, I appreciate you being on the show, man. I tell you, I absolutely love The Chosen. I have two of my favorite shows in Christendom and entertainment right now is The Chosen and Vindication. Those two are the best things going in Christendom and entertainment right now, without a doubt. Two completely different mindsets, but I just think they are the absolute best that's going on. And I tell you, you have a pretty big following. Peggy Schott from Vindication says, good morning, and good morning, Peggy. Thanks for stopping by. But Justen, this pandemic's been crazy. How have you been dealing with that as far as entertainment goes?
Pandemic? What? I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't heard anything.
Anyway.
It certainly adds an extra wrinkle, and it has added significantly to the budget. Just the process of having to test everybody on set multiple times per week. Anybody that comes on set has to test off site, then they get tested again on site. They have to wait until they are officially cleared before we let them on set. And even when we're on set, we're still masking up, we're still social distancing. It has been something that I'll remember for the rest of my life, and hopefully don't have to go through ever again for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I would imagine that just the constant testing has got to be a huge hassle to have to go through. Now, is it like you test once and then is it like every day or every couple of days?
So I won't divulge necessarily all the specifics of it, but everybody is being tested multiple times per week. And we just had the Sermon on the Mount scene where more than 2,000 people came to the set in Midlothian, Texas. And wow, they got tested. So many of them flew in. They got tested before they flew. They got tested when they landed. And then they got tested the morning of the shoot before coming to set that day.
Wow. Yeah. I've done a couple of auditions at home in my studio, and I'm just imagining, once I get the opportunity to actually participate in whatever film, if I'm blessed to do so, what that testing's just crazy, dude. I mean, I can't imagine how aggravating it must be to have to get, multiple tests. My wife is in the healthcare field, and she has to do it 2 or 3 times a week. So it just looks like a huge hassle to have to go through that. They got to come up with a better way to test.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, I honestly don't look at it as aggravating. I don't necessarily even think of it as a hassle necessarily. I'm just remarkably blessed to be able to work during this time. So many people have lost their job or had their hours greatly reduced. People in the service industries, waiting tables, working at restaurants and whatnot. I empathize, I sympathize so much with people like that. So I'm just, man, if I have to get tested 3 or 4 times a week, so be it. I am more than willing to do that because I have a job, and I'm just so blessed to be able to be working right now.
I totally agree with that. I mean, the big picture is we're blessed and we have the ability to continue on with our lives. Those that are able to do that, we have to stop and thank God and give him honor and thanks for sure. I love that. You're right. You're 100% correct. In relation to the second season of The Chosen, how far in are you guys at this stage?
Our last day of shooting is tonight. It's an overnight shoot. And
Wow.
then we wrap principal of photography on season 2 of The Chosen. And our editor has been hard at work editing footage together. And then Dallas, once he wraps from the directing side of things on set, he will go into full-time editing mode. He's already been editing. Like, the guy spends 12 hours on set, and then he will edit at night with John Quinn, our editor, who's editing at Kappa Studios, actually, in Burbank, California. Shout out to Kappa, great people there. But yeah, we're still hoping to get the first episode of season 2 out by Easter. No guarantees, but man, we're hoping that still happens.
Amen. Absolutely. Dude, there's so many things I could say about The Chosen. There's probably just about every episode leaves me choked up, to be totally honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you right now, I think Jonathan Roumie is a real find. I really do. I mean, his portrayal to me of Jesus, and I'm not just saying this. I mean, I don't just say things, my friend. I think that's the best portrayal I think I've ever seen of Jesus, because when he's performing, you're thinking in your mind as you're watching it, yeah, that's how Jesus would have done that. He would have said it just that way. He would have reacted just like that, or he would have conveyed something. Yeah, he would have done it like that. That's what I find myself telling myself as I'm watching Jonathan portray Christ. I'm like, wow, it's so spot on good. You know, how did you guys happen to come upon Jonathan Roumie?
Yeah, he's all right. I don't know. He's decent, I guess. Jonathan actually auditioned for a short film that Dallas did for his church a number of years ago called The Two Thieves. And it was about, the thieves on either side of Jesus at the crucifixion.
Yes.
And Jonathan auditioned for one of the thieves because the story was more about them. Jesus was just a small, almost ancillary character in the story. This is kind of, Dallas's approach is trying to tell Jesus stories through the eyes of those alongside Jesus. And so what better way to tell about the crucifixion than through the eyes of the two people on either side of him? So yes. Jonathan wanted to play one of the main roles, and Dallas was like, no, you're Jesus. And so Jonathan was actually disappointed because it wasn't as big of a role. But now looking back at what it led to, my goodness, it has certainly exceeded my expectations, and I can't speak for Jonathan and Dallas, but I think we're all just kind of in awe of what God is doing through this project, and just trying to be humble, obedient servants to do what he wants us to do through it. Yes.
I think two of my favorite episodes is episode 2 and 5. I think episode 2 is about the children, where you're focusing on the children, which I thought was amazing. That I was like, man, the whole episode was about the kids, and the way that he was able to just relate to them, I thought was awesome. And then episode 5, when he turned the water into wine, powerful. Oh my gosh, dude, it was so powerful. I loved it, man. It was amazing. What was it like actually putting episode 2 together, though, with the children?
Yeah, that's actually episode 3, and that was the very first episode we shot. Season 1, we're in this Bedouin camp. It's just Jesus's tent, and day number 1 is out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we're a half a mile away from Capernaum studio in Weatherford, Texas area. Yeah. And there's airplanes flying around. There's chiggers that we have to worry about. Snakes. Right. Luckily I didn't see any snakes. I don't do snakes, but all of those elemental concerns. And then working with kids. So the very first day, we have all the elements to deal with and kids, and it couldn't have gone better, if I'm remembering correctly. But there were times, and you had mentioned this, Maurice, that when you watch Jonathan's portrayal of Jesus, that you think that must have been the actual way he did it. Yeah. And that first week on set, watching Jonathan interact with these kids and just seeing the way his eyes portrayed emotion. I got choked up on set. Like I'm literally standing there watching the scene, and I don't get to watch a ton of scenes on set, but I'm watching Jonathan as Jesus, and I'm literally starting to do the, because I'm starting to well up enough and almost turning into a sob, and trying not to look like a total wuss there, just crying off the scene. But it was one of those I don't want to say out of body experiences, but it was a really surreal moment of watching an actor that I had just gotten to know, a week or two before that, that week. Watching him embody what I have grown up believing Jesus to be, just this very nurturing, accepting, loving embodiment of love. So it was watching that that first week, just starting to cry, watching scenes, I knew we were into something.
And then episode 5, I believe that's the water and the wine episode. And matter of fact, I'm going to have Phil Mendoza on the show next Monday.
Oh, very cool. Tell him hi.
What's that?
Tell Phil hi, master of the ceremonies. You did a great job.
Yeah, Phil had a really great part in that episode. Man, that episode was really powerful, man, from beginning to end. The mother's interaction with Jesus, getting him to turn the water into wine, and just every aspect of that particular episode just had me locked in. And it can really get you choked up when you're watching it. Again, it'll make a wuss out of you. But that being said, I mean, when you really looked like there were a lot of moving parts to that particular episode. What was it like putting that one together?
That is my favorite episode, actually, episode 5 as a whole. And when we shot that was at the end of our first stint of filming. So we shot episodes 1. Oh, I'm sorry. That was at the end of our second stint. We shot episodes 5 through 8.
Yeah.
A few months after we had done episodes 1 through 4. And the wedding feast, the wedding at Cana, was the last bit that we filmed. So it's an overnight shoot. We started probably 5:30 p.m. and we're rolling until 5-6 o'clock the next morning. And the actual dance itself was happening at 3 or 4 a.m. So everybody is tired, but you can't tell in the episode. And we have some fun behind the scenes videos of that scene. I was standing at this at my computer, and I had downloaded a song. It was a temporary track that people would dance to, and so I had some selfie footage of me counting them in 5, 6, 7, 8, dance, and then they start to dance, and it's just so exciting. It's so joyful and just happy vibes at 3, 4 in the morning. And my flight to go home and see my family was at 10 a.m. So I knew that the minute we wrapped, I was going to get into a car and get to the airport so I can get home and see my family, because I'm missing them at that point. But the energy was just out of this world for that final dance scene. And we had, extras. We had principal cast members there. It was just one of the most memorable times I've ever had on a film set.
Yeah, and the episode did have a very, very festive vibe to it. Yes, June, every episode left a powerful imprint on the heart, a beautiful image of our Savior Christ. There's no question about that. I look at Jonathan Roumie, and I've compared The Chosen to, and there have been many presentations in film and entertainment of Christ, many, and one of which that comes to mind is the Cecil B. DeMille. Well, actually, they were basically Bible stories and Moses and so forth, which, from a cinematic standpoint, particularly when you consider the time frame, utterly amazing. Mm-hmm. Utterly amazing, but at the same time, I love the heart and the spirit of this particular series. And I mean, I would put it up against any film that has ever attempted to talk about the life of Christ. And I would still give the nod to The Chosen. I guess maybe, it's the latest version I've seen, but I don't think I've ever seen it done this well, honestly. And I really don't believe I've ever seen it done this well. And then when you look at the fact that, Dallas was able to get this launched through a GoFundMe program, generating as much as $10 million to get it done, totally and utterly amazing, which is further evidence to the fact that the hand of God is all over the series.
Yeah, 100%. And, we bypassed the typical routes for crowdfunding. We didn't do a Kickstarter. We didn't do a GoFundMe. We didn't do whatever other platforms are out there. I mean, we built this in-house through our distribution partners, VidAngel. And to your point, raised, over $10 million from 19,000 investors. So it's a lot of people bringing what Dallas likes to say, and what we all agree with, is bringing our loaves and fishes. God doesn't call us to feed the 5,000. He just calls us to provide what we can. And then it's up to him to multiply it so that he can feed the 5,000. And throughout this whole project, it's been kind of a manna for the day project too. I mean, in order to finish all 7 seasons, we do need a lot more money. But God has been so just at play at giving us what we need for the day, not giving us what we need for the next 5 seasons, not giving us what we need for the next 3 months, giving us what we need for the day. And it allows us to be more obedient, to be more, not so, I don't know. I'm struggling for the words, Maurice. I'm embarrassed right now, but just having that obedience and the reliance, that's what it is. The reliance on God to provide. Give us this day our daily bread. That's how Jesus taught us to pray. It's not, hey, God, give me some money in the savings, so that if I lose my job, I've got, a year of savings left. That's not what God calls us to do. He calls us to pray for what we need today, partly because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. But it's been such a wonderful, just eye-opening experience for me, helped me a lot with my faith, just being involved in it and seeing the way God has worked through it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And now the first season, I think there were 8 episodes. How many should we expect for season 2?
Yeah, we're going to do 8 episodes per season. That's the plan presently. Now, that could certainly shift if we deem that we need an extra episode in season 7. Who knows? But right now, 8 episodes per season, 7 seasons. And we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah. Now, when should we expect to, or do you have an idea when the second season will be available for public consumption?
Sometime this year. That's the goal. Like I mentioned, we want to have episode 1 ready by Easter, and that's for the public. That's for everybody. We're less than a month away from Easter. So whether or not that happens is not it's not official, but we are certainly striving and making every effort we can to get that first episode of season 2 out in time for Easter. And even if that doesn't happen, the full season should again, it's the God of daily provision. So we make all these plans. Our goal is to have season 2 out this year. We want to start on season 3 this year, but who would have predicted a global pandemic? Who could predict, some of the things that could happen and that could, certainly prevent us from moving forward with the plans that we've made. We just want to be obedient and do what God wants us to do. And so if he's got a different route for us to take, we're going to take it.
Well, and there you go. That would be the idea, Justen. God laughs at the plans of men.
Right?
One thing for sure that we can all take solace in is the fact that this is a God-led series. This is a straight up God-led series. So, and the Holy Spirit is clearly directing the path of The Chosen. Anytime you watch it, I mean, you cannot help but be affected emotionally by what you're seeing. It's amazing the way that Dallas kind of brings it out. Dallas Jenkins, the director and creator of The Chosen, God bless him. He's an awful elusive fellow to catch up with. But however, I can only admit the guy's got to be unbelievably swamped with obligations. But that being said, what is it like working with Dallas Jenkins?
Well, he carries more pressure than he should, honestly, on his shoulders, because he knows the potential impact of The Chosen. And when we get messages in from people that say, I was on the brink of suicide and I saw The Chosen, and that's what convinced me that Jesus does love me and that Jesus does have a plan for me. Seeing Jonathan's portrayal of Jesus in The Chosen, seeing the way Dallas has crafted this series along with his co-writers, Ryan Swanson and Tyler Thompson, seeing the way it's captured on, we can't say film anymore, right? Seeing the way it's captured digitally by Akis Konstantakopoulos, our cinematographer, and just the production design by James Cunningham and his team, you know, the producers that are overseeing it, Chad Gunderson and Chris June and their team. I mean, there are so many people that have come together to bring this to life in the way that it's being brought to life. So Dallas isn't a one-man crew, and he knows that and he recognizes that, but yet he still carries so much of that pressure. And so I find myself praying that he will just release some of those burdens. And as we grow, he's getting better at that. You know, he's elusive, he's busy, he likes being busy. He's a perfectionist, just like me. That's one of the reasons we get along so well. We don't want to put a subpar product out there, never, you know? And so we want it to be as, because if we do this show and we, I don't know, throw in the towel or something, or just say, nah, it's good enough, it's not going to have the impact that it needs, that it deserves to have. So, we truly, and I say we, but more, you know, the production side of things, I tend to steer more on the marketing side, but the actual creation of the show, so much care and so much effort is going into all of the little details, from consulting with our biblical experts. You know, we have a messianic rabbi who consults with us. We have a Catholic priest. We have an evangelical. We have others that have spoken into the authenticity of Jewish culture at the time. You know, Jesus was Jewish, and we want to honor that in the depiction of the life that he and the people that walked with him lived. So all of that attention to detail, you can see why Dallas is elusive and has so much on his shoulders, because he's definitely wants to be authentic and is honoring to what the times were actually like in first century Israel and Jerusalem and, you know, that area.
You know, the amazing thing about it, Justen, too, I mean, because you guys are filming basically in Texas, everything. And I saw the way that you were doing it, you know, because when you're watching the TV show, you know, you're thinking in your mind, that's in Jerusalem right there.
Yeah, and you know, we
Texas, you guys did a great job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we were honored and blessed with an opportunity to shoot at an amazing set in Goshen, Utah. So we shot a portion of season 2 there, but all of season 1 shot in Texas, and a good chunk of season 2 shot in Texas. And I was actually brought onto the project like right after they did their research trip to Jerusalem, you know, so it was Dallas and Daryl and a videographer to do some behind the scenes coverage, and then the VidAngel team. And they went over to Jerusalem, and the topography, the landscape of Texas in some areas really emulates what they saw in Jerusalem. So it worked out quite well. And you know, even the snowstorm that hit Dallas-Fort Worth area a couple of weeks ago, it snowed in Jerusalem that same week. So
oh my goodness,
they do get snow there.
Wow. You talk about realism, right?
Yeah. Well, snow is mentioned in the Bible a handful of times, so we know that they did experience snow out there.
Yes, they did. You know, looking at that series, you can see why Dallas is so blessed because he does pour his heart into the project. I mean, he dives in, dude, and you can see that he's meticulous in being detailed to everything. You know, it looks like he goes way out of his way to make sure that he gets it right. And based on what you just said, sometimes I guess you worry about him because he's so intense. I can only imagine in putting it together, but that's why God chose Dallas to do that, because God knew that Dallas was going to honor this project with his entire heart and spirit.
Well,
And
and God
you can
chose
see
the
it.
team around him too. I mean, that's the whole thing. It really is a team of people that are putting this together. So
Well,
can't over.
absolutely. I mean, let's be honest here. Anyone that's connected with the Chosen from Dallas on down, you know, they're, in my opinion, God selected. I mean, God knows the hearts of everyone that's a part of this project. And I'm telling you, I don't think you can get any more evidence that this is a God ordained project and effort. I really don't. Like I said, I've never sat down and watched a show. How should I put this? Well, a Christian show. And was greatly affected emotionally, like I am by this series.
Mm.
And again, you know, I love the way that Jonathan depicts Jesus, but every member, you know, Simon Peter's role, Andrew, um, I could just go on. Mary, I mean, all this, Eric Avari, you know, as Nicodemus. I could go on and on and on. Everybody's so darn good at their portrayal, and it's heartfelt. You can feel the emotion of the actors. Like, man, they're on it. They are on this. So it's just beautiful to watch. And like I said, I think that the only other faith-based show that I have tons of respect for is Vindication, which you can see on PureFlix as well. So I just think that God's moving, you know, in a direction, man. You know, we think about the pandemic and everything, and I like what you said about, hey, let's give God thanks, you know, in the midst of this, because He's still blessing.
Oh,
He's
for
still
sure.
blessing.
For
And
sure.
and
Yeah.
and God's getting ready to do something pretty spectacular. I mean, we as God's people, we just have to hold on and wait and see what it is. But He's got something really special on the
Oh,
horizon, and in particular, entertainment. As we are members of the entertainment community, I could just see something wonderful starting to unfold, and mostly, Justin, because of what I'm seeing with this series, The Chosen, and also Vindication by Jared O'Flaherty. Let me just say this to you. How did you? I mistakenly thought that you were actually a ball player, but you were associated with basketball. How did you transition from that part of your life into acting and screenwriting?
well, and let me just say before I answer that question too, that The Chosen is available beyond even just PureFlix, and to your
Okay.
point of God working through the media right now. I mean, we're the first show ever to release on its own app. You know, you can download the Chosen app on your Apple device or your Android device. You just search The
Okay.
Chosen. It's free. You can watch the whole thing. We even have it on YouTube, for crying out loud. We're giving it away for free because we want this to reach as many people as possible. And then we
Yeah.
have what we refer to as the pay it forward system, where if you like the show and you want others to see it and you want more seasons, you can actually contribute to it financially at thechosen.tv/pay it forward, or you can do it right in the app. So it's just not to do like a sales pitch or anything like that, but we are still completely publicly financed, and that's how we
Okay.
get more seasons done. But yeah, my degree is in education. I was an elementary school teacher
Okay.
because you know, maybe it was at the encouragement of family that I don't pursue the film and an entertainment career. Look, I'm a small town kid from rural Minnesota. I grew up in a town of 1,500 people. You
Wow.
know, you don't necessarily strive or think you have a chance to quote unquote make it in the entertainment world from there. I
Right.
have zero connections in the industry. I mean, everybody that I'm connected to now is somebody that I'm not related to and didn't know growing up, you know?
Okay.
So I I thought I was going to pursue the film career, but I went a more traditional route, got my degree in education, did the, teaching bit for a while. But even during that, I was acting in commercials. I would show up on a local TV commercial here and there, and I was teaching myself how to write, and then became a director, and finally moved out to Los Angeles after years of just kind of struggling in Minnesota because it's a small market here.
Yeah.
And it didn't pan out the way I expected it to out there. And I came back in fairly severe depression. That was God's. I don't feel like God necessarily broke me down intentionally, but he allowed the breakdown to happen and then taught me a number of things through it.
Yes.
And I was going to just completely walk away from the industry, back in Minnesota in the small market where the acting work isn't the meaty roles that I want to do.
Yeah.
But I did end up booking a commercial that paid decently right when I got back. I thought, okay, fine. Booked another commercial. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll stay in this. And then the Chosen came about, and I had messaged Dallas, and it was a real small part to just help them out with social media, to help Dallas out with some things.
Yeah.
And fast forward, and here I've had my fingers in a number of things that The Chosen has done, and right now I'm actually working on a documentary that follows a handful of people to the Sermon on the Mount, and listening to their stories. And I think that's going to be really impactful, and that's going to be something that we'll share publicly in a few weeks here. And just, God is good, man. It's so, I know it sounds so cliche to say that. And, 5 years ago, I was the last person to want to hear that, as I was really struggling. And, I like this Steve Jobs quote, and I use it a lot, but he said at a commencement ceremony once, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And now, as I look at the dots that were connected for me, the move to Los Angeles was a necessary piece of it. All of this just coming together the way it has. And I'm just so thankful, just so blessed by God and all of this, that I just can't. I don't know. I'm like the woman at the well. I just want to go yell to everybody. God is good. God is so good.
Yes, he is. Yeah, and I'm thankful that God has blessed you, man. Because you've made a huge contribution to the success of The Chosen, without a doubt. I've heard nothing but great things about you, Justen. And one of the things that I have learned about you in doing my research is that you have a pretty good sense of humor. And being a comedian myself, I was wondering, what do you think is the funniest film, the best comedic film that you've ever seen?
Boy, I tell you, and I just don't know, because my mood depicts what I think currently is the funniest movie. Now, my all-time favorite movie, believe it or not, is The Great Outdoors, written by John Hughes.
Dan Aykroyd and John Candy.
Yeah, directed by Howard Deutsch, written by John Hughes. And for me, I'm a scenery guy. I love Minnesota in the summer. I despise it in the winter, but I love Minnesota summers, being on a lake. And the scenery in that movie is outstanding. And then there are just so many bits that I relate to, because I grew up going to my grandparents' cabin. And that to me is just, it's like comfort food. I still laugh at so many moments in The Great Outdoors, and we quote it. My wife and I quote it all the time. I finally let my kids watch it. So that one I just absolutely love. But I'm also, I'm a big, Pat Proft is an acquaintance of mine. He's a local Minnesota guy that worked on Airplane, and then developed Police Squad, which then was released in a movie series, The Naked Gun, and its sequels. And so Pat was behind those. I love that kind of humor too, where they're not necessarily explaining all the jokes as they're happening, and the drive home from the theater, you're like, oh, now I get that. That makes sense. And I made a super low budget movie with some friends. It's a 90-minute feature that I love. Shot it in black and white. It's kind of an homage to Young Frankenstein. I love Mel Brooks too. So I call it like a Young Frankenstein meets Airplane style of comedy, where it's just dumb puns and double entendres. I mean, it's family friendly. There's a little bit of innuendo in it, but for the most part, it's a PG, fun family friendly movie. But I love stuff like that, stuff that isn't necessarily the overt, shock humor. People trying to get the laugh. I like underplayed humor where you're not even necessarily aware that it's a joke until already they're on to the next joke. That's my style. That's my brand.
And mine as well. And that type of comedy was mastered in the 70s. By guys like, Bill Murray and of course, Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd and those guys. What are the favorite, and there are many things about the great outdoors that I love, but one of them is when Robert Prosky, who was the captain on Hill Street Blues, but he was in this film and he was wearing a shirt that said, "I've been to Duluth."
Yep. Right. It's moments like that. Again, in screenwriting, there's a term called hang a lantern on it, when you just want to acknowledge that this is meant to be a joke or this is meant intentionally. You hang a lantern on it to make sure everybody sees it. That's not a hang a lantern moment. That's a throwaway gag, you know? And I just love it. And there's in that scene too, there's a line where, Robert Prosky and his wife, who are the owners of this resort, we sunk over $200 in the remodeling of this, and that's not counting what you spent on Lysol. Those little things. I get a big kick out of stuff like that.
You know what, Justin, I could go on and on and on about The Great Outdoors. That is an awesome film. Well, let me ask you, in relation to the faith-based film industry, do you think that the faith-based world is starting to make an impact on secular audiences?
I do. I think that it's tricky. And I'll tell you a story. When I first met Dallas Jenkins, it was at a really small little conference that we had here in Minneapolis. And it was around the time that he released his movie called What If, starring Christy Swanson and Kevin Sorbo. And I loved it. I thought this is a great movie. And because it wasn't, I hesitate to use the word cheesy, but there is a certain level of cheese that has come to be expected and just accepted in faith-based films. And What If didn't have the level of, we're going to wrap everything up in a bow, everybody's going to be redeemed by the end. It didn't necessarily have that particular vibe to it, although it is a happy ending. I love the audacity to go out and say, you know what, this is real life. And more faith-based films are having the courage to do that. Yeah. And, I see the progress that filmmakers are making and just being willing to relate to somebody going through some junk. You have to show some junk in your movie. It can't all be puppies and bunnies.
Yes.
Yes. So I think that it's reaching secular? I do. But when I met Dallas at this film festival, I told him what I wanted to do was to kind of be a sheep in wolves' clothing, more or less. I wanted to be in the secular world of Hollywood, but wear my faith on my sleeve, kind of similar to what a Chris Pratt is doing today. He's a secular movie star. He's in secular movies, but he's not shy about, professing his faith. And I wanted to make faith adjacent films, stories that had, faith elements in them, but weren't preaching to you. And Dallas I still remember this very distinctly because we sat down and we had lunch at this convention, and he kind of said, yeah, that's what I wanted to do too. Doesn't work. So it's either, look, this is a film business. It's not the film art. It's not the film ministry. It's the film business. And
Yeah.
in order to have investors come along and want to finance, it's expensive to make movies. It just is. There's no two ways around it. You have to have a fair amount of money to make a decent movie. And if you want to have a financially successful movie, you have to know your audience. So it's either a faith audience or a secular audience. It's really tough. It's really tough to appease to both audiences. But I'm still going to try, doggone it. And at some point, I hope to release content that is engaging enough, funny enough for the secular audience, but still has the heart that the faith-based audience will want to come out and support it. And honestly, The Chosen couldn't be more overtly faith-based, but we have had so many people come to us and say, I don't even believe this junk, but it's funny, it's good, it's great TV. And so I think if we can continue that trend, you just never know. And again, to your point earlier, Maurice, I know I'm rambling now, but God is working through the media. He just is. He why should Hollywood be the devil's playground? I think God wants Hollywood back. I think this can be a place where we can influence people in a positive light and help spread the gospel and help advance the kingdom, which to me is completely based in love.
100%. 100%. I had the privilege of being in the film Love Different in 2016, directed by Anthony Hackett. And he was on the show last week. We were talking, and he had an interesting idea, very similar to what you just expressed, as far as a quote unquote faith-based film. And he thinks that, and I'd love to hear your response to this, but he thinks that there should be two types of faith-based films. One that's strictly for the faith-based audience, all the hookiness and the cheesiness. Hey, I'm all about it. I mean, give it to me. But then there should be another section of faith-based films that's for the secular viewer. What do you think of that?
I've thought that, actually, and I was one of the I was a little too outspoken, I think, at one point, calling out some of these quote unquote cheesy movies. And now I have come to the terms or come to accept and totally agree with the fact that the choir needs to be preached to as well. There is so much just arguing and bickering and disconnect within the church. We need to really self-examine and really just start to get along with each other and to not, stretch these little disagreements into something bigger. We don't need to make mountains out of all these molehills. Let's just squash the molehills before they become mountains and just, I don't know, get along. Is that so? That's such a hard concept to grasp. So no, I think I think, Maurice, that Anthony is onto something, and I think you're onto it. And it's just there is something to be said about movies for each particular audience, and but I don't think movies should be sermons either. I don't think that I think they need to entertain. I think at their heart they need to be entertaining. They need to be engaging without the message, and that the message can be there. But if it's the only thing that's there, I think you're going to lose too many potential audience members. Whereas if it's not there at all, you're also going to lose, audience members. So nobody has it figured out. I haven't figured it out, and I don't know that I ever will. But I think that there is room for both. I think you're absolutely right there.
And I actually think that, and I mentioned this earlier, that, God's doing something in the world of entertainment. God's changing things. And it's real subtle, but it's real obvious at the same time. Like, things are starting to look different and better when it comes to the faith-based world in general. So I love what you just said. And it's like, how do we figure this thing out? We're going to figure it out, though. We're on our way. Let me ask you this in relation to budgets, because, I alluded to the fact earlier that through a GoFundMe program, The Chosen was able to get $10 million, and it's just God led. It's just off and running. God's got it. Do you see a dramatic, perhaps, increase in budgeting in general for faith-based films?
I think the budgets need to increase in order to compete with
Yeah.
Hollywood. Whether there is the money for that or not, I absolutely believe there is money for it. It's just a matter of tapping into it, making those connections. You know, Dallas has alluded to this before, and I believe this 100% too. He who has the gold makes the rules. And if we as believers start to be a little more, and I don't want to label an entire group of people because I think that's unfair, but I know that there is a lot of money that God has. You know what? It's not our money. You know, I'm blessed to be working right now. I'm blessed to have a paycheck, blessed to be able to put food on the table, have a roof over our heads. But it's not my money. It is just it's on loan from God, and I need to be a good steward of that.
Yes.
And I think that there are so many believers that, and you see it in The Chosen. I mean, 19,000 people, some of them only giving $100. And I say only $100 is a lot of money. You know, it is. And then, you know, all of that being pooled together, you see what it can do. And so if we continue to do that and continue to grow and just come together as a community, that's the whole thing. You know, this bickering, this fighting, you know, my church believes this, your church believes that, you can't do this, you can't do that, social justice here, PC there. Just come together and let's, you know, build this community and let's make something great. I don't know. Sorry, man alive, Maurice, you put me on a soapbox here and I can't get off.
Justen, I love it, man. I love it. You said some great stuff, dude. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Everything you're saying makes perfect sense to me. I mean, it's plausible, it's reasonable, it's needed. These are the type of conversations we in the faith-based world need to have more often. And to add to your point about the bickering and not getting along, you know, that's got to stop. You know, the world's looking at us and they're like, well, these people say they believe in the same God, and they're always at one another's throats. Yeah. You know, and I'm going to say this: the one thing that has to change too is the fact, you know, and it's an old adage that's unfortunately true, but the most divided day of the week is Sunday morning. You know, everybody's going, and it's not just a racial thing. I mean, we've got all these different denominations. They do it this way. They do it that way. Yeah. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So just to piggyback on what you mentioned about getting along, we've got to come together. And that's what God's looking for, by the way, you know, coming together. But
agree.
Yeah, you said all the right things. You said all the right things. So that's what's going on. I've always got people chasing after me. Okay, here we go. All right. So let me wrap up this interview with, this has been a great interview, by the way, Justen. I have absolutely enjoyed this conversation. It has absolutely been amazing to me. Do you have any future projects on the horizon coming up outside of The Chosen?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. It's the canned response, right? Yes, but I can't say anything about them. There's certainly ideas. There's certainly nuggets. There's you know, some are further along than others, but yeah, absolutely. The Chosen is my priority, of course, but I think there's also room for other things. And I'm, you know, flexing the acting muscle again a little bit more. Just signed with Jean Wanger at Treasure Coast Talent, and I just got to give her a shout out because she is just a tremendous woman of faith. I love her and have never felt the way I feel about an agent as I feel with Jean. And so potentially having new acting opportunities. You know, I appeared in episode 6 of The Chosen, and that's really the most significant acting I have done in the last, you know, 2 years or so, probably. I mean, the pandemic certainly has a part of that, but definitely looking forward to more acting opportunities and really getting connected with all of these little pockets of production companies in the faith-based world to get to know more of them. And but then also writing my own projects and potentially developing something at some point. Yeah, again, it's such a such a cop-out answer, but yes, just not able to say a ton about it just yet. How about you, Maurice? Do you get opportunities to talk about yourself? What do you have brewing right now?
Well, to be totally honest with you, since you asked, Justin, I signed with Pastorini Bosby Talent about 4 months ago. They're based out of Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with that with them or not, but so I auditioned for Kendrick's Brothers film. So I'm waiting on a call back for that. Prayerfully, I'll be in there. And I'm also waiting for a callback for an audition I did for a Hulu series that's coming up. So
wonderful.
Just trying to move around, do some of the same things you're doing. I've got this platform going, and I've basically been doing stand-up comedy for the past 10 years. I've had a chance to do acting here and there, but comedy is what I really do. Haven't been able to do it, so I've supplemented it with doing these kind of shows where God's allowed me to talk with people like yourself that's in the faith-based world, comedians, actors, producers. I've talked with Paul Long, tremendous guy, Christopher Sean Shaw, who has a very good comedy coming out called Church People. I think that's the weekend of March 13th and through 15th. That's coming up this weekend with Thor Ramsey, the stand-up comedian. And so, I mean, I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of Gigi Orsillo, who's in Sleeper Agent with Leland Clausen, had her on the show. I've just had a lot of fun doing the show, man. I mean, I love talking about, what God's doing in the faith-based world of entertainment, because we're at the front lines of the gospel, really. We have a huge responsibility. So this has been a lot of fun. I've been doing it for a while, and let's see where God's going to take it. But thanks for asking, Justin. I appreciate that, man. So do you have any advice, Justin, for young filmmakers or actors, young entertainers that are thinking about making this a career?
Absolutely. Just, keep at it, but also spend a ton of time in prayer. And it's difficult to say that to a non-believer, of course. But those are the people that I also want to reach. And so sometimes I'll even use the word meditation, just spend time in solitude, spend time just, and we view prayer so often as talking to God, but we kind of forget that it's listening to God. And so just be still, just listen, just understand that if this is God's will for you, if this is God's design for you, there's a reason for it. If it's not God's design for you, make sure you figure that out. I don't do it as often as I'd like to, but fast, take some time to fast, and then just lay yourself prostrate on the ground. And I've done that, a very small handful of times. And I've come away with it with new direction and really, truly not hearing the audible voice of God, but feeling something in my heart. And so that's first and foremost, is to just get right with God, to get where, he wants you to be. And I don't think God's the God of geography. I moved to Los Angeles, which is the penultimate place for actors to go, especially. Now, there's a lot of other pockets that have been built up. Atlanta is certainly a good hub, and then Vancouver is in Canada is a heck of a hub right now too. Michigan was for a while. Albuquerque, New Mexico was. New York is certainly still in play, but I don't think God really cares a ton about geography. He doesn't care where you are. He just cares who you are, whose you are. And so for me, I'm here in Minnesota, which isn't necessarily where I want to be geographically, but I've never been more comfortable with where I am, just as far as walking in the Word and walking with God and trusting that He's got me, than where I'm at right now. So my advice, number one is pray. But number two, do things, be active about it. Set yourself a goal, tangible goals, things that you can do. People think that the job of an actor is to act. No, that's the bonus. The job of an actor is to audition. The job of an actor is to create. The job of an actor is to hone their craft, to take classes, to connect with other actors, to connect with people. It's not the job. The job is to connect and to audition and all that stuff. So technology is cheap. Everybody has a phone that can take videos nowadays. Come up with characters. Start a YouTube channel. Get your content out there, and take feedback. You got to be able to take feedback too. My goodness. I used to do. Sorry, I'm sidetracked a little bit here, Maurice. Forgive me.
Oh, it's fine.
But,
perfectly fine.
I was hired by a guy that I'm friends with to this day, and we were kind of manufacturing demo reels for actors that were just getting started. So I would actually write scenes for them to do based on what I thought they were as a character. And I can't tell you how many times I would write a scene, and then somebody would come back and say, "Well, this isn't my kind of character." And I said, "Well, yes, it is." "No, I'm the leading man, jock type." "No, you're not." You have to be real with yourself. You have to accept who God created you to be. And if that's the leading man, the Rock action star, you better look like the Rock. If you don't, you might be the sidekick. You might be, you just have to accept your lot in life. You have to accept who you are.
Agree.
And that's not to say that you're pigeonholed, that you're complete, I look a certain way, I have to do this. There's room within there. There's a little bit of variance one way or the other. But, I love Steve Buscemi as an actor. But he's not going to play the lead in Pretty Woman. He's not going to give Richard Gere a run for his money in Pretty Woman.
He's not going to give them a run for their money, Justin. No, you're right.
So just accept who you are, acknowledge who you are, take the feedback. I don't know. Anyway, I was saying, I'm glad you brought up Christopher Sean Shaw's movie, because he's a brother, a dear brother, good friend. And I'm going to see Church People this weekend in my local theater here in Minnesota, bringing a group of friends there. So really excited to go support that movie. Donald Faison is in it, for crying out loud. Scrubs. I mean, that's my kind of humor, So I'm just really exciting to support Christopher Sean Shaw and see him finally get that movie in front of audiences, because that's been a labor of love for him for quite a while.
Yes, Christopher Sean Shaw has really put the work in, and he's got some quality. He's got some fine actors in that film.
Yeah.
So God has blessed him with that. That's this weekend coming out, everybody. Check it out, Church People, directed by Christopher Sean Shaw. Thor Ramsey's in there. Check it out. And before we get away, Justin, how can fans follow you on social media or by website?
Well, I'm on Instagram at Justen Overlander. It's pretty easy to find, but my name is Justen, and I appreciate you spelling that correctly for me. It's easy to make that mistake. Facebook, I mean, I think I'm almost maxed out on Facebook friends, so it's difficult to. And if you do send me a request on Facebook, send a message too. That's one of the weird things about Facebook is a friend request, and you don't tell me why you want to be my friend. I kind of want to know who you are and why you want to be connected. So find me. I'm the only Justen Overlander in the world. If you Google me, I mean, what you see is what you get, for better or worse. But yeah, Instagram, I do puns still once in a while. And definitely check out The Chosen on Instagram, though. It's at The Chosen TV series. That's where you find every update that The Chosen has to offer. Like us on Facebook. And again, get the app. It's free. Every episode is there for free. There's behind-the-scenes features. You can see me in the behind-the-scenes features if you really, truly want to. But yeah, just search for The Chosen on Google Play or the Apple App Store. It doesn't take up a lot of space on your phone. It's free. If you don't like The Chosen, delete it. That's fine.
Okay. Justin, man, I appreciate you being on the show. This has been an awesome interview, man. I tell you that right now. And I absolutely love The Chosen. It's just an amazing series, which can be seen on PureFlix. Ladies and gentlemen, check it out. We've been talking with associate producer of The Chosen, Justen Overlander, on the Maurice Brown Show. And if you like this video, check it out. Subscribe to the Maurice Brown Comedy channel, share and like. And later on this evening, and this is for you as well, Justen, this will replay on the Creative Motion Network on Roku TV. So check it out. It's probably going to be on at about 3 p.m. this afternoon. So if you coming in late and you want to see the whole thing, you can see it at 3 on Roku TV. Once again, Justen Overlander, associate producer of The Chosen on the Maurice Brown Show. Justen, thank you so much for being on the show, and may the peace of Christ be with you and your family, my friend.
Bless you, man. This was so fun. I appreciate it.